up two got bodies, yeah. Find them in our records. Auto hosting method, squad represented. Killing you with knowledge, yeah, the uppers getting dirty. Oh, you're so affected, cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah, the whole thing is a sinner. We got it and we get it, offering refreshment. Level up your conscious, yeah, it's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable, facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable, give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you, you just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable, unless you're with the gang or no.
Messing with the penguin, we're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin, messing with the penguin. Trying to make you come to your senses, forget the general consensus, just pay attention. The rules I have paid with good intentions. I'm clenching my back wrenching, representing only the most superior independent media. We got that real shit fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your bold claims. We don't play no games, we stay relentless, exposing hoax against quick. The IPS are making an entrance, busting doors down cause now's the time. The interventions that I mentioned, we're affecting so many man across the spectrum. We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend in. Steady gaining tremendous momentum, there's nothing close resembling. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like 10 pin, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Gotta know the hopes on me, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship. We ain't telling fibs. Messing with the penguin, we're messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin, messing with the penguin.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Today is supposed to be exploding watermelon day, but as of right now, the skull of Big T is intact. So far as we know. I mean, there's no reason why this one has to be the spectacle that the previous attempt was. And there's still time. I'm not holding out hope. This is not a hopium channel. We're not doom boofers here, hoping for the worst, for the clickbait value, or to validate and vindicate some kind of dark world view, some nightmare scenario, which so many people are looking for, and so many people want that. I mean, how many times have the Chicken Littles told us the sky is falling, World War III starts tomorrow, or the next day, blackouts tomorrow, nuke tomorrow? We've had our fill of that. What we're doing here is completely different, and I think that with the shot in the ear on 7/13, not to mention a plethora of other predictive programming turned real news events we can point to, we're on the right track. Now, again, I'm not sure how today ends, but I took the time today to watch The Prestige because I was told that this might give me some clues as to how this Trump event is going to take place and the role of the alleged Trump twin. So if you didn't know, there's supposedly a twin, a blue tie and a red tie Trump. There's a lot of twin stuff around him, which is undeniable. You know, just right off the bat, you just search Trump twins, and it's just the strangest thing. How many times he's been shown in movies, cartoons, SNL. I think Jimmy Fallon played him, confronting his own twin or with his a double. It's just a reoccurring theme with him that goes back. So it's another one of these things that we can look into with Trump. Very fascinating, heavily meta-scripted character. Nothing real nor organic about it. But today is 8/4. Happy birthday to Barack Obama and Hakeem Jeffries. What a coincidence. But as far as 8/4 and the general pattern goes, when we've noted the previous years when this has happened, this has gone by and there seems to be nothing. There seems to be some kind of very targeted predictive programming event. It's really strange how some of these things occur. I mean, do you remember on 11/3/2019, there were 3,000 of us on a live stream looking at Seattle, at Century Stadium in the Space Needle, convinced one of them was going to get blasted? And As we're staring at the Seattle Space Needle, a Space Needle in Turkey bursts into flame. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? Were they aware there were too many people watching and it would have screwed up their psyop or ritual, so they just did it somewhere else? Or something else? I'm not sure. But right now, I'm waiting for that something else. And I'm not convinced it's not going to end as scripted or as predicted. Still, the day's not quite over. So let's see here. Yeah, Jay Diggs, hopeful suggestion here. Maybe Seattle could still get nuked. And maybe he just mixed up the dates. Joined by Austin 108, nothing major, Elephant Tusks, Observing Reality, Osher, Self-Made, Let's Go. Armin Reed, Ted Striker 2112 says, we still have a few hours, but it seems like next year. Yeah, it's like we're waiting for the Great Pumpkin. Nothing major says, I'm in Oldham, okay so far. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world, as usual. It looks like scheduled riots or riots. I don't think anything's organic. Joined by Portal Complex, Esteban HLG, Upside Down Guy. Time. Yeah, we're just watching the clock. Alright, Flozik, Pete Trippa, Self-Made sees, I seen a meme over the weekend, side by side of Lisa Simpson and Kay Harris as the first female president. I have an axiom here about Simpson's predictive programming, which is auto-hoax all instances of alleged Simpsons predictive programming. 90% of it's fake. Truthers make up their own. The Trutherism religion, which is what it is a cult of liars who seem to somehow get off on lying to each other, believing each other's lies. Like they've given up on truth a long time ago. The Trutherism, or the name Truther, is a misnomer. They are liars, as much as the mainstream is liars, but ironically, they're witting liars, whereas the mainstream media believers don't know that they're being lied to, nor that they are parroting lies. So you have mainstream, unwitting liars, and then the truthers, who are knowingly lying, fabricating, and manipulating information all the time. And they will make up fake Simpsons evidence, fake Pizzagate stuff. There's no limit to what they will make up. They will misrepresent video clips taken out of context to promote this or that insane paranoid theory. Like, I remember this one clip just offhand because I was thinking about the 5G tower outside the window here. There were these birds building a nest on a 5G tower. But that clip went viral, and it was Truther saying, look, even Mother Nature knows the birds are attacking the towers. And there was another one where there's some 5G tower worker wearing some full body protective suit, holding some kind of complex equipment, and like, look, they know it's toxic. Well, no, he was actually applying some kind of paint. That was a Tyvek painting suit. But these are clips taken out of context to bamboozle as many people as they can. And they never retract their claims. Big truther channels on X will tell big lies. They'll have community notes posted, and they won't retract their claims nor take accountability for their lies. And that's because they are liars. And they can't all be feds. You know, I thought, okay, these are feds, these are disinformation agents, these are pedos on parole put to work, contaminating the area in media where free thinkers still congregate. And no, a lot of them are just freelance, independent disinformation agents. And it's really fundamentally no different from a lot of the independent crisis actors out there. You know, people who aren't being paid by the mainstream media to defend mainstream lies. And we have some of those. We have people who call in frustrated that we call stuff fake. And it's like, you know, that doesn't make you a devil's advocate. I'm the devil's advocate here. We are the devil's advocates versus the MSM box, in which MSM Plus and Woketown are subsets. The person who thinks that we're in the wrong for questioning it is actually a media advocate. And again, if you're not being paid to advocate for big media, well, what's the phrase? Useful stooges. Mango Penguin says BTC, or yeah, I heard some stuff. There's a lot of rumors going around. A lot of rumors about the next Black Monday. Tomorrow, big financial crash. Observing Reality said they showed the same BS Simpsons picture of Lisa and said it was Hillary a long time ago. Oh yeah, and then the Trump in the coffin never was on an episode. And then you have some big truther channels who have the gall to say it's a Mandela effect. We all remember Trump died in The Simpsons, and now it never happened. No, it never happened, and you're lying. These Mandela liars, these truther liars. I'm actually writing a book on the lie world order and the various factions, and I'm really making some points here that we have to take accountability for um, lies, and we have to not shy away from that word or using that word. Like, I'm not a witting liar, and I'm not knowingly in any way disseminating any mistruths, but I'm taking the subtractive route. I'm taking the MSM minus the skeptical position. Upside down guy, Goldfinch, and Tim Osmond kissing in a tree or whatever. I don't know what your agenda is here. Like, you can put gas in the tank, but none of us here are really comprehending where you're going with that. It's not even slightly offensive. But since you asked, right now I'm awaiting the judge's response to my motion to move for summary judgment since there's no dispute over the central facts. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see what they say. It's going to represent either A, a victory, or B, a stepping stone for the next step. J. Dig says one of the biggest twit bears who's been calling for a collapse as he's been posting is saying tomorrow's overblown and nothing will happen. Generally speaking, it's nothing burgers all around. But the idea that anything has ever happened that was accurately predicted by Trutherville or alt media, that's laughable. They didn't predict 10.7. They were busy playing Modern Warfare 3 on 10.6. Nobody predicts anything with any specificity. Even that prophet who said that Jesus told him Trump was going to get shot at and it was going to bust his eardrum, that guy was proven a fraud. Okay, continuing. Nothing burgers all the way down, says Angst G. Well, we still don't know yet. We still don't know. We're not holding out hope. However, I'd be surprised if there wasn't some kind of feedback, some kind of incident referencing today and the date, and specifically connecting somehow to Trump. It'd be really surprising if it doesn't turn out. Okay, let's continue. We will go on here. Prestige, I just watched it, and really no spoilers. I'm not sure if I have much to say about it other than it's the Nolan brothers, Jonathan and Christopher Nolan, Batman, Fallout, Oppenheimer, and these guys are neck deep in predictive programming, creating this sort of propaganda for the state. Again, predictive programming is not magic. It's not a supercomputer. It's not the demiurge, and it's not God. Predictive programming is government-controlled entertainment and training the collective psyche with the news cycles to be, preparing you for future fake news cycles. And concurrently, they will provide reinforcement programming that creates this echo chamber effect. So you're watching something on TV. Oh, look, Trump, blood on his face. You switch it on to Amazon. Let's watch season 4 finale of The Boys. Oh, look, there's the Trump guy, the Homelander, with blood on his face. It's synchronized. And this is where I disagree with synchro-mystics who think this is mystic. No, it's not synchro-mysticism. It's synchronized propaganda. And the fake news is one category of propaganda. The celebrity soap opera is another. The political soap opera is yet another. And then you have the movies, the magazines, the novels, video games, every conceivable form of entertainment where these messages are inserted from the top down. And you have to look at the collective points of agreement to discern, what the worldview is that they're all a part of, and then what they don't step out of. There's a reason why the alt media is lockstep Republican. It's like, oh, look at all these free thinkers. They broke free of the mainstream media box, but they're all lining up behind Trump. And that's because, what, lesser of two evils? Or they don't recognize that not choosing might be viable. And I'm not saying I'm not saying to protest the votes. I'm saying that voting itself, or even believing in it, or even believing in the power of a protest vote is fallacious. The whole thing is a clown show. There's not multiple governments, there's one government. Governments are just a subset of the great mind control apparatus, this monolithic media mind control system, which I consider to be the new monotheism. It is the new God. And everyone you know kneels to their God constructs. They pay tithes so Gaia doesn't flood the land. They empower the government to protect them from the big mushroom cloud god that they genuflect to by ducking and covering. And one of the points in the prestige they make is that the people want to be fooled. That is one of the points they make at the very end. That the magic trick, the magic show, and I talk about this quite a bit. I say that when you're looking at the world stage, you're looking at a magic show. And if you default to it's magic, as in it's real, because you can't tell how it's fake, then you're as deluded as somebody at a magic show who believes in the magic because they can't determine how the trick was pulled. Just because they're doing a trick that fools your eyes doesn't mean it's magic. It means you've been tricked and you haven't figured out how. And the general public and synchromystics and many others tend to look at media Infinite Plane Radio.
Hello, Tim. Did you hear that Donald Trump was attempted to be assassinated a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, 7/13. It was actually more than a few weeks ago.
It's pretty amazing. Have you ever heard of crime scene investigators? How they can go in and spray luminol. I forget what it's called. I think it's like luminescence. But they can spray chemicals on the ground and then shine a UV light over the chemical and like see like kind of like cum stains or blood.
That would be the friend of Jaren's, Upside Down guy. He's obsessed with creating in his mind some kind of weird fan fiction. I don't want to elaborate very much, but look, I got enough of that. I listened to the Joe Rogan Netflix special, and I've heard enough about that particular body fluid for the next lifetime. Like, I get it, it's comedic fare for normies, it's Joe Rogan's shtick, but I hear all these parrots just repeating what the big comedians say, and it's like, I'm sorry, that's not a automatic laugh line here. It's just like, come up with your own material. Let's Go says, Upside Down guy with a 13-year-old humor. Well, 13-year-olds with that humor would be even disturbed. I mean, it's puerile, for sure. Don't know the purpose of it, but we're going to open up phones here in a bit. I had a comment, someone wanted to address the synchromysticism thing. He says, do you dismiss synchromysticism if a historical event isn't technically under the modern entertainment psyop complex umbrella, but relates in more than one ways to chain or another chain of events? Yeah, I do. For example, someone pointed out an example to me. They said, look, I have this blog that seemed to pertain to this future event. Nobody told me to write it. Yeah, but you're not a mainstreamer. You're not one of the programmers. You're not platformed to give your message to billions. When we're talking about predictive programming, we're not talking about every single content creator who are just participating in an echo chamber. And if you're not echoing, you get censored. But we're talking about the Nolans, the Metascripters, the Kubricks, the Tom Clancy, these novelists, and all these game creators and game writers. We're talking about mainstream. So in order to qualify as predictive programming, it has to have the reach to have conceivably saturated the collective psyche. So some no-name blogger who happens to get it right has no impact on the collective psyche. They don't have the monopoly over worldview formation that mass media does. It's a very controlled set. So no, if you're not on the stage, it's not synchromysticism. Maybe it's a coincidence, but you have to take it on a case-to-case basis. And for someone to say, oh, I have experienced this synchronicity, show me. Show me where one instance of predictive programming could only have been placed there by God. Show me where man could not have done this. And the people who use that argument, oh, man could not have done this, it's too complex, are falling for a couple of fallacious lines of thinking. One of them being the divine fallacy. I can't figure it out, therefore God. Or I'm watching a magic show. I can't figure it out, therefore magic. No, you insert the supernatural, the magic, high tech that doesn't exist. You're veering into the realm of subjectivity, non-reality. The MSM plus, where you're taking as a fact, you take it for granted, the story as framed, and then you're piling stuff on top of it. Okay, Upside Down Guy says, I was questioning the roof in Butler. Look, if you're still talking about second shooters, you should go to InfoWars. Like, if you believe in second shooter theories, that's like Trutherism 101. Like, you're in the wrong university. This is the IPS Institute for Advanced Media Deconstruction, and we immediately begin with the premise that false flag theory is the principal misdirection line. So if you don't believe the mainstream, they give you some easy stuff to digest and occupy yourself with. So if you want to follow some red herring around for a few years and chase second shooter theories, go for it, be my guest. But we don't have time for that. Just like we don't have time for Mandela effects. If you're into Mandela effects, second shooters, chemtrails, and divine explanations for mass media events synchronizing with the news, this isn't the raft for you. You will sink. You're already sinking. You're submerged in the sea of irrelevance. You're not properly filtering out the mal, mis, and disinformation. And the entire MSM box is primarily misinformation. You cannot have an informed view of things without being able to discern between the misinformation and the perspective you would have when you include psyops and psyop theater as a given. Like this predictive programming, crisis actors, psychological operations, quote, hoaxes as the media calls them, these are standard. These are standardized. This is it's systemic. Systemic fakery. Mass media has systemic fakery. It's not like here and there you have occasional fake events, PR stunts. No, not at all. Because bottom line is, they've written our history in advance. Donald Trump is evidence of this. Elon Musk is evidence of this. I can point to a number of historical characters who, and even buildings like the Twin Towers, where you can show that there is some planning, long-term engineering in shaping future events. And this is not a stretch. We've determined their methodology, and that's what we talk about here. And second shooters are there to distract people from the fact that it's fake. And if you're still following second shooters, again, wrong saloon. All right, we're joined by Thirst for Truth. Thank you for joining. We in Rome. Ollie Goering. All right, we got about 90 people in here, so let's go ahead and open phones back up. We're not talking about second shooters, chemtrails, Mandela effects, or any other trutherisms. Again, Trutherville is full of liars. You know, you have two different types of liars. Woketown is full of liars, but they're indoctrinated into lies. They don't even know that they're lying. They're just shrill. But then Trutherville is a bunch of people who have adopted an alternative media. They are their own media, the people's media, but they're incredibly gate-kept. And it's driven by something other than a search for truth. It's more like ideological supremacy. It's InfoWar. And the resistance is futile, by the way. If you consider yourself like you're resisting the New World Order, I'd really question anybody who says something like that. Like you're part of the resistance. Like, oh, you're against government agencies, you're against the Fed, you're against the FBI, you're against the CIA. Like, what are you really shaking your fist at? The Wizard of Oz hologram. You know, your energy is, your loosh is being tapped into. In fact, you're fighting the InfoWar. You're part of it. And I take the position of anti-war. I'm a conscientious objector. Joined by Mark Johnson. Says, good morning, people. I've been busy with work. Hope you're all well. Jennifer Reeves, JC, Eric Stevens. Yeah, we're waiting for any news. Waiting for the exploding watermelon. And there's still a little bit of time. Upside Down Guy, why don't you call me offline and we'll talk about it. But that's, like, this isn't about me anyway. Upside Down Guy is one of these, I can't quite figure it out. There's got to be something to it, but they can't all be feds. But some people act in very questionable ways. He was calling some judge, speaking on behalf of me, I guess, trying to get information about the Buffalo shooting because he wants to prove it was a hoax. And it's like, if you're fishing around trying to investigate crisis actors and calling around like that, you might be a Fed. And what I mean is, I was looking at the story where there's this. I think his name is. Let me pull this up here. Here it is, Mr. Hall, Mr. Richard Hall. This is a truther who has been calling a certain bombing fake, and he went out and he was harassing the so-called crisis actors. Here's the article from the BBC. Conspiracist tells court no one was injured in the Manchester Arena attack, and he has stood by it. And this is a reference to the 2017 blast. Well, what he did is he spied on some of the crisis actors, and he described this thing as a huge hoax. And he's not backing down, by the way. He's saying millions of people have bought a lie. But he's being used, I think, as an example of why we can't trust independent journalists. Sort of like what they did with Alex Jones. They're doing the same thing here to this guy. So I don't know if I trust him, but I just want to point out that anybody who is stalking crisis actors or calling around is likely misdirected. Like, what do you really think you're doing? Like, if you're legitimately trying to investigate something, that's one thing, but anonymous people calling around, I find it to be a little tricky. Like, I'm not sure if I trust the person. And he's also been extremely defensive of the space station, which he's never seen. Anytime I talk about the space station, he calls in to distract us, and he's very defensive of Jaren's fake ISS transit. So I wonder, maybe Jaren's paid him to call in. This guy used to call into our Discord server just to blurt out racial epithets. So why we even let him on the phones, I don't know. You know, I know he was contributing to a lot of people's monthly subscriptions here, $1 a month. You join at infiniteplanesociety.com. But like, I'm not gonna entertain trolls. You know, I have one troll I've been stalking back for 7 years and suing him. You don't hear about my other trolls. I mean, some of them are dead. Flat Earth Reset, RIP. But another one of these trolls, there was Darren Aldridge, the big Redditor guy. A lot of these people learned how to shut up and back away when they saw that if I gave them attention, I could give them plenty of reason to back off. But it's been a while since we've had anyone persistently trying to make me a target. Like, I'm not a punching bag. And I don't have any of the, what do you call it? I guess I shouldn't say more. I'm just saying I'm very well versed in the art of doxing, and I can hit back. So let's just not get into these personal attacks. And it's such a waste of time anyway. The Marcus Goldfinch character tried to destroy my life, and he was and when I say try to destroy my life, he hacked into one of my emails, was harassing family members. Before we doxed him, he was sending what I would consider to be sexual harassment to female family members. Like, this guy's a sicko, and I have copies of it all. And so I look at these people as pathological. There's something psychotic about someone, I used to call it erotomania, where they believe that the person they're obsessed with thinks about them all the time, and they have a greater relationship, and it's just psychotic. And I'm not trying to entertain psychos. And at this point, this guy has made multiple attempts to just distract and waste time. I don't know if it's for comedic effect or he's being paid, but he's just about qualifying as a stalker at this point. And I'm just kind of like, look, this is your final warning, because when we set the DIA loose, I can't stop it. You think Goldfinch believed he was going to be doxxed? Up until the very last moment, he was calling previous employers of mine, calling family members. He was sending me pictures of a dead sibling, blaming me. I mean, he was just making these really personal remarks about these people. And so my point is, he dug deep. He did a lot of damage. I don't know if he has anything to do with my background checks not clearing for regular jobs, but this person made himself into a nuisance to me. And that's why I haven't let him go. That's why we have him now in a Superior Court of California, not only being sued civil unlimited $5 million along with Google, but I've opened him up to all kinds of charges of federal crimes, stalking, hacking, and privacy invasions, and much, much more. So he's not off the hook. This is just getting started. His life is ruined the instant his identity becomes established as being part of the Hunter Biden laptop thing. And none of that wouldn't happen. None of it would have happened if I had just let it go. You know, he said it was a game to ruin my life, and he showed me through some hints. He dropped some hints about where he came from and his wealth and all this. I learned about Abbott Laboratories. He was on the board of directors when it sold in 2005 for $320 million. And he was on that board of directors. So here's a guy with money, an impressive IMDb database, been in lots of movies, knows all kinds of movie stars. I have a list of the clients he had as a trainer in the UAE, trains celebrities close to Trump and the Trump family, so he's politically connected. So my point is, he thought he could ruin me, and he was gloating about it, and I caught him in the act. We caught him, we had him send inadvertently confessionals. So my point is, his life is not going to be going too well into the future. No amount of money in the world can protect him against the crimes he's committed. So I'm just saying, again, I don't think that I'm someone to troll. I mean, you're welcome to try. And I'll tell you one more thing. I had a lot of fun doing it. I got Goldfinch's brother on the phone. I got his mom. She deleted Facebook. Like, I actually had a lot of fun. It was very educational. You know, the counter trolling, counter stalking. It was like a crash course in everything that he was involved in and is still involved in. You know, I believe he does this for the government. He told me he did, actually. Before he was doxxed, he told me that his job was doing character assassinations. He said he did this as a career, but he's taking me out for fun. And that's why he's spearheading this thing against Hunter Biden. This Marco Polo 501c3, yeah, he's the financer of it. Like, he's contracted to do smear campaigns. Anyway, I don't mean to get distracted. I actually blocked Upside Down Guy from his comments showing up, and I won't be taking his calls because I don't have time for another troll. And once Goldfinch is done, I don't need someone else. I don't need another nemesis. I mean, unless that's how it works. Is there just going to be another one and another one? It almost seems like that sometimes. You get rid of one and another shows up. Although I imagine Upside Down Guy would be much easier to take down than Goldfinch, and I wouldn't underestimate me on this. You know, I've had experiences with people creating problems for me, and it is so easy to destroy someone's job. I mean, I'm not going to give anybody hints, but I've got a 3-hour course on counter stalking that I haven't released because it could probably get me into trouble. So, you know, it's just like, it's probably not a sane thing to release it. But when it comes down to it, like, I don't want to get my hands dirty anymore. I want to focus on what's important here, and I don't want to be distracted. However, you know, again, I mean, I guess I can't be any clearer. We'll move on. We'll move on. It's been a while since we've had to put our focus on someone. And look, we have dossiers. You wouldn't believe the files that we have accumulated on so many people, because unless you've been with us from the beginning, you wouldn't know what kind of opposition that we came up against, especially when Mad Mike was still with us, and the type of attention he got drew a lot of insane people. Okay, let's move on. Let's Go says nobody has time for nonsense. Sure, but you know, another thing too is the think tank has always been focused on self-defense and maintaining itself. Like, if we weren't proactively defending ourselves, this wouldn't have existed. It would have been diluted. It would have been spread thin. It would have been destroyed if I didn't give moderator wrenches to every serious content creator, every serious thinker. If we didn't exclude the unserious or the distractors. And the distraction agents are, you know, they could easily outnumber us. So we've always had to maintain this thing as a think tank. And if you're not here to be productive, we have every right to eject you, obviously. Okay, let's move on. So we're talking about Mr. Hall. If you missed this one, this guy here again, he's sort of an auto hoaxer. I'm not saying he's a shill, but his methods are questionable, kind of like Sidethorn journalist. He went around, he got arrested for harassing people where a fake shooting happened. So what they've done is they put these characters in front of these fake events to be attacked on behalf of all media skeptics. And the issue with this is that these individuals don't represent our position. They may represent a selective form of skepticism, but if their critique doesn't take into account the directors and the script itself, then it could be controlled. Limited hangout. Because we're not looking for, oh, look, this person's grinning. It might be a crisis actor. Like, we're way past that. We're looking at directors. We're looking at the entire body of programming and where these seemingly anomalous events fit in. So Mr. Hall said, quote, there are many statements in the media that completely contradicted it, and it's in the public interest to explore these witnesses. And he describes that what he is engaged in is nothing more than honest reporting. He's described here by the BBC as a self-described journalist who claims the Manchester Arena attack was fake, and he maintains in the High Court that the bombing was staged. He said there was no bomb, and this guy's a former TV producer. So he comes from within the media, which I find also a little tricky. He told the court he believes there was no bomb, and no one was genuinely injured in the attack, in which 22 people died. One of the families have taken legal action against him for harassment. So interesting story, kind of close to the Alex Jones thing with the Sandy thing, but also similar to the Sidethorn journalist. Because you know what Jones never did is he never followed it through, like logically speaking. If this was staged, then what? They always keep it on the question, real or fake, real or fake, real or false flag, real or false flag, but they never go as far as if fake, then what? If fake, then law enforcement, government are in on it, because there's no way they're all tricked. So this expands then, because then like, wait a minute then, if the government knows it's fake, if the politicians involved, if the fire departments, the EMT, if they have individuals involved at the very top who know about this stuff, then it would seem that both sides of the political faction are in on it, which means that the right-wing pro-Second Amendment side of the fence is actually in on these hoaxes, which would seemingly be like self-sabotage. And so they never go that far. They never go so far to show you that you're being betrayed by both sides. They want to portray this illusion that maybe one side is playing dirty with media, but they never show you the big picture. They never show you the forest of fakery. They'll keep you focused on one or two or three trees. That's why you have this dumb story about a second shooter at the Trump event. Yeah, that's to distract the people who are awake enough to know the news is lying, but fall prey to the alternative explanations that are being shouted out by the people who are the opposition to the mainstream. Like, they have no clue that it's all controlled opposition. And let me make that clear. It's not like this guy might be controlled opposition in alt media, and this guy might be, oh, Stu Peters might be, and maybe Alex Jones is controlled. Like, you go through the list. No, they all are. And every single subscriber who parrots their narratives are controlled opposition. Truthers are controlled opposition to mainstream. Your everyday run-of-the-mill, red pill popping truther who is fighting the info war, who thinks he's part of the resistance, who filters his water. Yeah, they are controlled opposition. This is what I mean when I say that everyone's a liar, wittingly or not. So truthers are controlled opposition, and they don't know it. If you're crying about chemtrails, you're controlled opposition. And you may not want to hear that, but it's true. Okay, let's move on here. Yeah, James Fetzer has a judgment against him for the same thing since Angst G. You know, I find Jim Fetzer more believable than anybody. Like, he may legitimately be fighting against this thing, but I find his conclusions very awkward. Like, he's one who hasn't taken it to the next step. As in, and maybe it's too hard. Maybe it's too great a thing to realize that there are no idols, there are no heroes. Trump is not on your side, there is no deep state. But his premises are likely, with his assessment, it's based on the idea that there is a deep state. And that Trump was going to be assassinated, so he had to do a trick and fake it in order to... I don't even know how that works. But his beef with the Sandy Hookers seems legit. And I can't take that away from him. And then his interview with the fakeologist went very well last week. I thought it was a really good talk. And he made it very clear that he is open to the likely possibility that the space station's fake. He just never took it apart. You know, I almost think it'd be nice if somebody can convince him to write that book. You know, he did Apollo 11, and they won't touch that, though, because the ISS is real right now, quote unquote. There's actors up there right now. It's an ongoing thing. So it's like, you can't call that a hoax, but you can joke about Apollo 11 now. Fly Me to the Moon just came out. and Fly Me to the Moon makes a joke out of faking Apollo 11. Plain Dakota says, is Fetzer a boomer? I don't even know what a boomer is, to be honest. If someone can inform me, what is a boomer? It's just one of these buzzwords. I first heard it from QAnons, and they were calling COVID a boomer killer. Happily. They were looking forward to a lot of people dying, a lot of homes being empty. There's just this strange mentality. But I never really saw any sense in it. To me, the real division in society that I appreciate, that I pay attention to, is the programmed and the deprogrammed. And we know who the programmers are. Born between 46 and 64. I don't think, see, he says here, if he's a boomer, it's going to be hard for a boomer to be fully deprogrammed. I don't agree. I don't think you're going to find somebody who's 30 years old that's going to be easy to deprogram. No way. They're all true believers. Like, I get these people say, oh, that Trump thing was obviously fake. I'm like, no, it wasn't. You cannot convince me it was obviously fake. Try to convince me. Try to convince me by looking at the screen that you can tell it's fake. Do a forensic analysis for me. All you have is a gut feeling. That's not enough. That's low information disbelief. It's easy to call it fake. If it's on TV, it's fake. You have to know how it's fake, why it's fake. And that's where we're at here, this informed disbelief. And my point here is that most people believe it's real. And it's not a boomer thing. It's not a generational thing. It's not that they're more inclined to believe and hold on. Not at all. I don't know anybody who just on the random has arrived at this conclusion that there's this mass mind control operation that we're all born into. It's not the starting point for anybody. Plain says, millennials are the highest deprogrammed, I'd imagine, because we all got all kinds off the internet. To be honest, this is the point I want to make too, is that there aren't any deprogrammed that aren't auto-hoaxers. Truthers aren't deprogrammed. Just because you deprogrammed from the mainstream media view doesn't mean you're deprogrammed. Alt media is alternative shadows in a deeper cave within the Plato's cave allegory. Alternative shadows. That's not deprogrammed. They're actually reprogrammed. Trutherville is a reprogramming. It's re-education. Oh, you don't believe the mainstream news? Go to this re-education camp and follow along behind Sergeant Jones over there, and he'll take care of your in-processing and your mental boot camp where you're reconfigured to, now I understand the news, I'm awake. It's a false flag. And all shooters have SSRIs in their system when they do the shootings. And 9/11 was an inside job. Like, they're given the slogans, they're reprogrammed. But no, the only deprogrammed are media skeptics, not alt media, because they're only skeptical about the left, not their own. So the deprogrammed is a very new group, and I don't see anything here that suggests that it's confined to certain age groups. Everybody who's listening here has made a few steps or great leaps towards deprogramming. Is there anybody here who's still fooled by the news? Like, oh, the next big one's going to be real. Anybody here think the news isn't prefabricating everything that they present us? Okay, let's see. Luis Ortiz says, I'm a millennial born 6/19/87, 37 years old. Sure, the FBI is going to write that down. But the trip from mainstream thinking to alternative thinking, or mainstream thinking to woke thinking, is something that they plan for. They realize that not everyone's going to fit in this box. So what they do is they have a really big box, and they have alternative spins on the big story that do not detract from its essential reality. This is where you have people chasing second shooters. They're chasing second shooters in Trutherville, rather than stepping back and saying, was this whole thing fabricated? And the reason why they can't even go there, because they don't know, and again, this is the standard operating procedure, they don't know that PSYOPs are the norm, not the exception. They are the rule. PSYOPs, hoaxes, perception management, predictive programming, concurrent programming, reinforcement programming, just mind effery is the rule, not the exception. Okay, let's continue. I apologize for having to deal with the troll. I generally ignore these things, but I think this one might be escalating, so I have to step it back. You have to look at patterns of behavior. I've studied stalkers quite a bit, and there's this phenomenon of stalkers where they will call you 5 times, leave you messages, and you're just supposed to ignore it. And they say, don't answer. Don't answer if it's 20 times, don't answer if it's 100 times. Because if you answer on the 100th call and say, please stop calling me, and you hang up, the stalker will then say, okay, I just need to call 100 times next time. It feeds them. So you're not really supposed to even feed them. So I had to kind of cut that one. Infinite Plane Radio.
We are all extras in a big movie.
Yes, the NPC default position is we are all extras.
I was an extra in a movie when I was like 14. They filmed a movie in Connecticut, and they just put it in the newspaper. Hey, if you're from 12 to 16 and you live in this part of Connecticut, come down, and they would pick you, and you made a few dollars just to be in the background in the movie. So yeah, it was in a movie. Made like $800. I had no lines. I figured I talked to some of the people there. They're like, no, you got to get an agent, dude, if you want to be an actor. But it was fun.
There were extras in the Netflix movie White Noise about the train derailment with the toxic airborne event, who later had to be evacuated from East Palestine, Ohio, when a train derailed and created a toxic airborne event, and the news media interviewed them. So you guys were extras in a movie, and now you've had to be evacuated because of the real thing happening. So I'm like, how does that happen? You go from being an extra to being a crisis actor.
I went from being a normie to a truther to a penguin. So like the difference is, it's like with truthers, they say that they want to know the truth. They realize like that the mainstream media is lying to us, but they make up more bullshit to figure out what the world is. Like they make up like all these weird beliefs and stuff. It's like, we can't make up all this weird bullshit. Like, I was still on board with like airplanes crashing into the building. I didn't believe in the box cutter thing, but I really did think that. Now I'm at the point now I'm pretty sure that it was all a movie and there was nobody even in the building. Pretty much the kind of stuff that we talk about, in the group. Then there probably never was any airplane. And as far as like this whole thing with Trump, yeah, there was no second shooter. There was no first shooter. And it might be even possible that nobody was even there and that entire thing could just be really advanced CGI.
Yeah,
Tonight,
100%. Great take.
Tonight I saw a thing on TV where they were talking about Kamala faked. They caught her using CGI already to make her rallies look bigger because they could see like the signs just don't make sense. People are like going through the signs, people's hands holding the signs on the wrong side of the post. So they already have advanced CGI. So maybe like the Republicans have better CGI. That entire event may have never happened. Who knows?
I have a family member who used to work for WWE, and they had these gigantic green screen sheets they would roll out, and their job was to put the green screens up wherever there were blank spots in the stadium, and they would fill in audience. They've been doing this for decades. Fake people. I mean, our world has been populated by fake people, and we have no idea. We've already been deep faked going back decades. And so this thing with Kamala Harris, like, oh, look, she's deep fake, they've been doing it forever.
I watch so many different podcasts and interviews. I don't watch regular TV, and I probably haven't for about 10 years. I watch a lot of podcasts and things like that. And it really doesn't seem like these people are acting, though. Like, I can spot bad acting. Sometimes it really feels like that these people hate each other. So then, like, I revert back to my, like, are we, like, in a simulation, and are these people just following their programming, or are we in an organic world and they're all just actors? I don't think they're really that good of actors. It really seems like Donald Trump is following some kind of programming, or maybe half of the people in the world are actors and maybe half of them are following their programming. I can't figure it out, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. This idea of our movie enhanced reality, and a lot of people just by default becoming extras in it. But I look at it as the programmed and the programming class, and then those of us who are deprogrammed. But the programming class consists of various levels of awareness, various levels of depth into the deception. And so I would say all reporters and all actors are actually part of the programming class, even if they don't know it, because they're just reading lines, and they could be used as platforms for predictive programming lines at any moment. But higher up, the more informed they are about the big psyops, like Tom Hanks, for example, probably knows about the whole 2020 agenda because he was so much a part of the predictive programming for it. So yeah, the programmers are not a small number. There's only a small number who have the ultimate secrets, but it's actually much larger. And that's why I say that every average person is technically then a crisis actor. Like, we are programmers. The people who are following the program, who are saying, mask up, lockdown, obey the news. Yeah, they're programmers. They're just not getting paid for it.
I like what you were saying before, like anybody who wants to like make too much noise in this thing and like get too much attention, they probably are fed. Like, we don't have to wake up the whole world all at once. If we keep it down low and we tell a few people at a time and we get a few members at a time, slow, steady growth, that's better. And that's the way, I mean, like if anyone's like hooting and hollering too much, they're probably, they can't be trusted,
Yeah. And
they'll get the channel shut down. And we got to start all over again.
And we're at a point now where we've fine-tuned our approach to where we can rule out bad arguments and the beliefs that stem from bad arguments. So the only reason why I point out, Mandela effects and false flaggers and chemtrail chasers is simply that by believing in these things, these individuals reveal that they're still susceptible to the programming. They're still falling for logical fallacies, and we need to be past that. So I'm aiming for pure skepticism, quality, not quantity. Because once we've established this, it will metastasize, it'll spread, but it'll spread from this core of purity. We're not going to be contaminated by any of the muck from Trutherville.
I won't vote for Kamala just in case I'm wrong and all this is actually a genuine world, but like it doesn't reflect any of my personal values. But I'm like at the point now where I don't want to vote at all because I'm pretty sure it's all bullshit. And if I vote, then that's like, that's like me saying I agree with it or I believe in it, and I don't believe in it. I don't believe in our whole system. I think it's not that the system's wrong. It would be great if it were real and true, but it's not. It's all BS. I had this weird idea the other day that, like, how we talk about, like, they're harvesting our illusion. What if different negative emotions were, like, different meals? Like, if you were depressed, that's, like, a dessert for these fucking spiritual demons. If you're feeling hateful, maybe that's, like, a 3-course meal. That's, like, Thanksgiving to them. So it's just, like, you got to try to, like, force yourself not to care. Because probably somebody is profiting or... they're in their glory knowing that people are suffering mentally. I just try to find ways where I'd say I don't care anymore. It's all bullshit.
And it's not apathy. It's an informed not caring because you figured out that these things aren't worth fussing over until you find out the facts.
It's not real. I can't cry. If nobody died, nobody cried, right? Like, I can't cry about I can't cry about fake dead bodies. I'm sorry.
Well, this was the argument.
Fake dead kids' lives don't matter.
They really don't. If any fake dead people's lives matter, let me know. I'd like to know. I'd like to see you shed a tear for a fake dead person. But the very beginning of skepticism, Pyrrho, the whole thing was suspension of judgment in order to avoid emotional entanglements to things that don't matter, that may not ever matter. And what's the problem with that? Why would you want to be emotionally plugged in? You look at interpersonal manipulation, and you can see that all the psychological manipulation tactics you see between an emotional manipulator and their victim is what the media does to humanity. Like crocodile tears. Yep.
What if they came out and said, like, look, we know there's going to be a global killer that's going to hit, like, within the next 30 years. It's not going to kill the whole planet, but it might take out half of the planet. It could be completely fake. It could just be some advanced weapon. And they could say something like, look, we knew this was coming for, like, 80 years, and we know exactly where it's going to hit. It's going to hit the bottom of Chile, and it's going to completely wipe out South America. So we've been letting these people in here a little bit at a time because we don't want them all to die down there. That entire continent is going to be poof. Or if they just want it for themselves and they want to get everyone out of there because it's like Atlas Shrugged where they build their utopia in the jungles of the Amazon. That's what they're gonna do.
I've been thinking about this. Maybe I want to get your take on it because billionaires are brainwashed. Money doesn't get you out of this thing. You have to be in the know. This is a secret society. And so you have all these billionaires who probably believe, okay, we're elite and the Earth's going to be destroyed. And then Elon Musk. Do you think Elon Musk might be selling black market tickets to
Oh
Mars?
my god.
Like they have like, oh,
Oh my
we got a
god.
secret rocket base over here. And if you're really rich, you got your seat to heaven secured. Like I wouldn't be surprised if billionaires are being bilked out of their money because they're actually scared.
I don't know about that, but when you said billionaire, it triggered something that I just saw tonight from Elon Musk. Maybe 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, I caught it in a clip with him and Lex Friedman. And Lex Friedman's kind of nerdy. I like him. He's like semi-autistic and stuff. And he admits to finally doing DMT with his jungle buddy down there. He's got like some friend that's all about zoology that goes down to the Amazon for like 3 years at a time. And freaking Lex Friedman finally goes and they meet the shaman. So he's telling Elon Musk, this is like their third or fourth time together on the show talking about Neuralink and shit. And he's like, so I heard you did some DMT and stuff. What did you see? Now, this is a huge tell. You have to find this clip when you see what Elon says, right? Lex Friedman's such a believer, dude. You gotta love him. He says, well, I saw the whole universe, man. Like, like I zoomed out and like I
Oh,
saw
okay. See,
space.
that's a funny thing that
And
happens. It's like
Elon,
so he's doing drugs. Just
Elon right away was like, he's like, really, space? Like, I could tell, like, Elon said right there, just like looking at his expression, he knew. He was saying, like, look, space is fake. If anyone knows on that level that we can't go out there or that we don't have any shit that can make it that far. I'm not saying that there's a firmament, but we don't have the technology to get that far. We can't get to fucking outer space. I think Elon's facial expression just said, I don't believe it.
okay. I'm gonna have to find that link because what you're saying here is that this Lex Friedman is talking about his drug trip where he had cosmic consciousness and he saw the balls
Yeah,
in
he saw the
space.
whole universe.
And
He
Musk,
saw the galaxies and everything. And Elon's like looking at him. He's like, sure, buddy.
because Elon knows that balls in space are bullocks. So
He knows it's big.
yeah, fascinating, funny.
That was
I'll find it.
confirmation right there. I was like, oh my God. I got like chills. I was like, he fucking knows. I can tell just the way his eyes moved a little bit. He doesn't believe his buddy. He knows his friend was just on drugs.
I'm gonna
So
find
he
that
wanted
clip. I'm gonna find that clip because I had a talk once, or I listened to a podcast. It was with the Higher Side Chat, and I love his work and I love his interviews. He's a great podcast, but he was talking about how he did acid or mushrooms or something, and he went up into space and he saw the Earth, like astronauts do. And I'm like thinking to myself, how can that be? People have been doing these drugs and they make these claims that they've seen this stuff, but there's no way they've actually seen it if it's not real. So their perceptions are being colored by something. And if you look back at the late 60s and 70s, the drug culture, that's when they really started turning space into this cosmic destination where astronauts are being merged with psychedelia. And you still see that today, like meditating astronauts, because space is an allegory for higher states of consciousness.
We were talking about Fallout the other day. What if every little colony, I've watched these little videos that describe all the different underground vaults. Now, each vault would do different experiments. Some would be control vaults where they would do no experiments and they would just let people live as long as they could. Some of them, they were very sadistic and they would kill random people and stuff. So maybe like these little vaults are almost like metaphors for different societies and stuff. And so like each nation is a vault. We are trapped in a way. And I don't know. I was like just trying to like find like analogies and all these different shows that have been coming out in the last year. What are they trying to tell us? Maybe not just predictive programming, what comes next, but what's the overall message or theme of like, what are they pointing out the defects in society?
Interesting points. Interesting points that you're making here. I think very valid. And I, for one, would not be surprised if all the money we throw into NASA isn't going into a black hole, but is rather going into what might already be a pre-existing network of Mars bases. Like Mars could already be on Earth. We could already have total recall going on beneath our feet in a dozen different places. And who knows? Maybe we have colonies on Saturn. Like they could have the entire solar system fabricated, deep faked, beneath our feet with brainwashes born into it, sold into it by their parents. And this bunker slash mind control scenario isn't new. Cults create closed systems and they eventually create their little breakaway civilizations. This is a very common facet of cults. That's why they all do bunkers at some point.
I have this like crazy idea. I don't know how to make AI art. I gotta learn. I gotta figure out because I love the stuff that you're making. I would like to make something that's almost like an image of sort of like imagine like your typical picture of a domed firmament flat earth model, but imagine above that hovering like maybe some stars and stuff. Imagine like almost like these like Cthulhu type creatures hovering above it.
Okay,
on the other side of the firmament above it right now.
Right.
What they do is they've got these tentacles. There's more than one. There could be 1,000 of them, right? They're out of our dimension, and they have tentacles that can actually penetrate through the firmament, through the layer, into our world. And people in our world, maybe not all of us, but some of us are connected to these beings. We're like the fingertips. We think we're all just separate people, but there could be like 50 people that are all tied to this other astral being, and we're just we're like that freaking anglerfish, dude. You're just like its tongue dangling.
Like superorganisms, hive minds.
Exactly. We're like organisms. We're like the fingertips of a superorganism. And maybe that's why when you talk to some people and their eyes glaze over, they're from a different being. That's why they'll never understand you. And some people, you feel like you've met them and you feel like you've known them your whole life within 5 minutes because they're a part of the same organism, the same like astral coral jellyfish fucking thing.
Like the same egregore. That's an interesting take, and it kind of reminds me because you mentioned the squid.
But I wish I could create a painting of it through some kind of AI. Like if we could use an AI to like make a picture of it and then like make a painting of it or some piece of art, but use the AI as like a template to get it going.
Somebody in chat says, Elephant Tusk says these are called oversouls.
Oversouls. So somebody already thought of this.
Well, this is an interesting concept. I try to do a quick render of one, and I just got a flat Earth with a squid beneath it. But it reminds me of H.P. Lovecraft's stories, where the elder gods fell to the Earth and they live at Point Nemo, beneath the sea in this dead city. But mentally, because these are big squids, but mentally their tentacles reach out. And the idea is that there's a certain percentage of the population that have actual DNA from these aliens, and that at some future point that these people all share a hive mind where they dream the same dreams, and that they can all be activated by these sleeping dead gods beneath the sea and turn into a hive mind at any time. So the whole Lovecraft horror scenario was kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers in a way, but that there is an oversoul hive mind latent in many people who don't know that they're related to the squid god at Riley.
I want to be a freaking seahorse. Because seahorses are cool.
Yeah,
I don't want to be a squid.
Squids are as alien as they can get. And, the one theory, there's all these stories like, these H.P. Lovecraft's stories and his body of work, but then there's these other that go into the Lovecraftian mythos that add on to it. And there was one writer who suggested that maybe a comet hit the Earth at some point and that the ocean is actually a foreign body that was this comet. And all the creatures of the ocean that are creepy and weird, jellyfish, squids and stuff, and sharks probably, came from somewhere else. That they were transported here via this big iceberg, which became our ocean. And this is just something that was brought up as an explanation for why so many of his stories have these characters who have this strange fear of the ocean and of the depths and what's beneath it. And Lovecraft often said that mankind is adrift, a sea of ignorance, and if we knew it was beneath us, we wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So he's always intimated in his works that we are blissfully unaware of just how possessed this world is by these aliens.
I think he died young, too. Like, I don't think he ever got married. I bought, like, a compilation of his books, maybe, like, 12 of his books on audio. I don't buy books. I don't have time to read. I'm too busy. So I just listen to audiobooks while I'm doing shit. When I get sick of podcasts, I'll go to an audio book. I think I bought a compilation of his books, and then maybe I watched a YouTube video on like the shorts of his life, and he didn't really have a long, happy life or anything. He was probably a miserable guy.
Yeah, he died at pretty young, 46. Um, there's a lot of literature about him. The universities have literatures about him where they pretty much describe him as a xenophobe, and they kind of deride his work. Like, oh, his stories are actually expressions of his xenophobia and racism. Others say that his father, who was a Grand Orient Lodge Freemason who died and had some bad form of syphilis, had spilled a lot of secrets that he shouldn't have and filled up young H.P. Lovecraft's imagination. So there's a lot of stories about his life, and he does seem kind of like an oddball, but his body of work is like the cornerstone for this entire genre of horror sci-fi. And I kind of include him with science fiction because he dealt with extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, and all these things, long before a lot of these.
What, he was alive in what, the 20s or 30s or?
Yeah, I think he died he died at 46 at the.
So there wasn't much before him as far as science fiction goes, really. Like that was a budding genre that emerged like in the early 20th century. We had a huge bookcase. My stepdad had tons of books. We had like an entire Ray Bradbury. We had stacks and stacks of books in the house when I was growing up. So my stepdad was probably a nerd when he was a kid. God rest his soul. He's passed away a long time ago. So we always had the classic science fiction growing up, and that's probably where I get the interest in all that stuff. But it's amazing that people were thinking about this stuff 100 years ago. I think it's mostly based on bullshit. But
well, that's why I like science fiction, because they're creating these hypothetical situations and then building a fictional universe off of that. And I think it's an interesting way to reason things through. And that's what, like, Mars, a Technical Tale, Warner von Braun was for. And it just shows a form of thinking about the future in a very constructive way. But the genre of science fiction has been hijacked for worldview formation, and now it mostly constitutes, in many ways, just propaganda. It's always man's polluting. We're about to hit a dystopia if we don't all unite. It's just been hijacked. But I like the whole genre, and a lot of these early writers like Arthur C. Clarke and others turn out to be sickos. Weirdly enough, not weirdly enough, but you can tell that their books, they're not prophets. These are early metascriptors.
I'm a firm believer like that. You can be a fan of a person's art and not a fan of the person. Like I know Hitler was an artist of some type. I'm not an anti-Semite. I have no beef with any people. But if I saw one of his paintings and I thought it was nice, and then someone else said, "Oh, by the way, Hitler painted that," I wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, I have to get rid of it." I would still say, "Well, he was a piece of crap, but it's a nice painting." I'm sure. I still like Michael Jackson. Some people say he was a pedophile. I don't know. But, I mean, the first cassette I ever got in 1987 or whatever was bad. I got a Walkman on my birthday, and I still like the old music. He could be a weirdo. So there's probably a lot of great things that we could enjoy as far as art goes, and it could be connected to people that were crazy, evil.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that, but I think with Arthur C. Clarke, I just read some pretty disturbing things, and I'm like, well, I want to make sure I'm making the point here that I'm aware of that. And I find it questionable anyway. But it just seems like there's this element within entertainment that kind of mirrors what you see in religions anyway. But yeah,
Like he wrote 2001. He wrote the book.
Yeah. In fact, by the way, yeah, that's why I say he's a metascriptor, and that's why I think his work is worth examining. But yeah, his 2001 Space Odyssey, in the original version, they're going to Saturn, not to Jupiter. And then I guess they found that Saturn would have been too hard to have made for the screen, so they had to change it. But the book was written where they're going to Saturn.
Oh my God, we were talking about who are all the like important metascriptors, the directors of the 20th century and now the 21st century. So like, who were the metascriptors of the 1800s, right? Like, who wrote Tom Sawyer? What was his name? Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. he must have been like a metascriptor of like the last century. So God knows, we could have been fed bullshit for like the last 500 years. At like every century they had, they give the responsibility to like maybe the 10 best artists, writers, creators of their time, and they say we need you to paint the picture that the world.
Right. That's an interesting question. Like, who was it back then? Because this thing didn't start. The people who are in control of it now didn't invent it. And I was reading that book, Country of the Blind, which deals with this idea of a secret society bending history. But it's not just the news media; it would be the literature. And so, if there,
Maybe
yeah, there would be.
maybe Jimmy Carter was John Kennedy then. Like I have to tell myself that entire assassination never happened, that it was all just a big movie. If 9/11 was fake, that assassination was fake, and they must have did something with that guy. They didn't really kill him. Like, that's the rule, is that they don't really kill people. It's everything is a hoax. There's no false flags. There's almost never a false flag. It's usually a hoax 9 out of 10 times. What did they do with all those people afterward? Where did they go? Where did they go after? I'm not saying he became Donald Trump, but he must have done something.
Yeah, that's another valid point here. These things we see on the world stage, these big events, especially the big historical events, this is them making history. And they've taken control over the mass mind and the worldview itself at a very deep level. And I say they, it's the programmers, a very relatively small group have, through the media, through the control over media, movies, and using this monolithic approach. There's no reason to think that they would kill people on the news any more than they would kill people in the movies. It's all one. Same directors, same infrastructure. So that it's pretty clear. Yeah, 9/11 was fake. JFK's assassination was fake. RFK Jr.'s assassination was fake. The attempt on Trump was fake. And the fact that we sat here for the last 2 years commenting on it, pointing out that there's going to be this significant thing on Trump very soon, we're predicting things regularly by reading the zeitgeist and knowing that it's a news-bent reality here. So yeah, looking back, I don't think JFK died. And will someone like Jim Fetzer be able to approach that? Because he's written many books on JFK's assassination, and he's convinced that there were like 6 different shooters that day. So he adds on and adds on and adds on, which I think is erroneous. I think you have to take the subtractive route.
They just want you to take either option A or option B. You can never go for option C, that it never fucking happened. Like with all these events, they either want you to be on this side or this side, but you can't like put your hands together and say, hey, time out. What if you're all lying and you're all in on it, dude? I can spot it. I can smell bullshit here. None of this makes sense. Okay, why wouldn't they have drones in the air? If we have these predator things in the sky where they can smoke people with freaking rockets and machine guns, are you telling me if the last president is given an event that he doesn't get? I don't think satellites are real, but you would think that they would have like the best surveillance, cutting edge, 500 feet above. Probably
Right.
You would think thousands of feet above, that if they could, like, look, we were both in the military. If they have like those C-130s and they can just like lock on a freaking Gatling gun onto a Jeep, they can park a camera above the president talking. And if anybody's on top of a building anywhere, they should have known about it. So that's how I know it's all fake. Plus all the other pictures of him just posing, they look like selfies. They look like TikTok selfies. And I'm like, it just all seems too perfect. And that's what really broke my heart. That's how I knew, like, that it's all fake on both sides. There's nobody we can trust. And
Yeah, that seals it. And you made some great points here. And this is the reason why they have the second shooter theories, because they know that people are going to use reason, or some of us will. You're like, well, there's no way that I can reasonably believe that this was real. But if you follow that the next step, if fake, then what? Well, fake fireman's death. His family, liars. Trump, liar. You're looking at all these people. The guy that dresses up like JFK Jr. in a aged John Denver costume, Vincent Fuchsia, liar. Secret Service agents, actors, liars. Like, I think it might be too hard for some people of the lies and the fakery. And that's why I say you have to take the off-world stage perspective. You have
like,
to
yeah, I don't know. they're like, yeah, but I mean, like, you realize people died there that day. I'm like, but how do you really know? I'm like, you don't even know that could all be CGI. CGI could be 10 times more advanced than you really think it is, and none of those people were even standing there. That all could have been just generated in a computer at NASA somewhere.
Yeah, no doubt. They've always been ahead of the curve. Like, Alex Jones used to have this thing. He would say that the elite are 40 years ahead of us in technology and secret space programs. And I used to believe that. But now I think, if anything, the only place where they're going to try to stay ahead of us is going to be in special effects. And this is why I think the ISS is such a joke. Because by putting up a piece of space infrastructure that's going to last, they confined themselves to the special effects of the era when they were launched. And they can't deviate from that very much. So if they had launched a space station in 2020 instead of like 1999 or whatever, it would be a completely different thing and it'd be way more believable. But no, they're stuck with basically badly aged and aging special effects. It's an embarrassment. But I do think that, yeah, they're definitely investing not in a secret space program, but in better special effects.
Yeah, where do you think they're going? Like maybe just the whole Earth is bigger than they think, and they're just taking all this money and they're exploring and they're building a whole other country somewhere else, and they're gonna just leave us here and our shit, and they're gonna say see you later. They're on the other side of a plane or a planet or whatever the hell this world is, and they've been stealing money for 1,000 years. They have enough money to just start over. I mean, I can't figure out why they're not just harvesting our negative emotions. They are stealing money from the people, and that part I can't figure out why. I don't want to resort to, they're building underground military bases and whatnot, but I mean, what are they doing with our money?
The money could be like a way of putting us on a leash where all of our energy goes into acquiring this. So they control that, they control our energy. And as long as all of our focus is intent on winning the game by their rules, and they rig the rules, then they're always on top.
That's part of the illusion. Money isn't real. Like they have to eat the money. They have to keep a way for everyone to keep going and do something. They could probably figure out a way where everyone could just live happily. If you want to stay in your pod, they probably have enough for people to stay in their pod. If you want to go out and do a job, they have enough for people to go out and do jobs. They probably have to create enough chaos just to keep the whole thing moving. Otherwise, it goes stagnant, and then everything dies. I don't know.
Yeah, it's order and chaos simultaneously. Well, hey, great call. I have another caller coming in here, so thanks again for calling, John the Plumber. Any final thoughts here?
Brother.
Okay, awesome.
Nope, good night, man.
All right, excellent call. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Infinite Plane Radio.
How you doing, Tim?
Good. Just waiting for the exploding watermelon scene, which I don't know if that's going to happen today. What do you think?
Oh, you mean like the comedian Gallagher act? The Watermelon Smasher?
No, we're talking about 8-4 and the Trump thing.
Yeah. Well, we can't really trust whatever dates we think they have meta-scripted, right? Plus, we always have to allow for the possibility of a wild card.
Yeah.
Wild card. Improvisation. Quick question about Wizard of Oz. Pop quiz. How many of your listeners or yourself would be aware of the fact that in the novel there were some significant differences, one of them being how Dorothy got home? In the film, she clicks her ruby slippers 3 times, right? It says there's no place like home.
Right.
Do you know what happened in the novel?
No.
She got home by taking control of the witch's flying monkeys, and the flying monkeys took her home.
I like that one. Although, this is a meta-scripted thing. In the JFK assassination, there's a bit of Macbeth, Masonic ritual, and Wizard of Oz. And who destroys the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy with her ruby slippers, or who destroys the illusion? But then you have Oswald, and he's taken out by Jack Ruby. And so there's this interesting subtext with Jack Ruby and Oz, specifically Ruby. And there's some significance to the red ruby. And
there is. I'll tell you what else. Ready?
Yeah.
In the novel, her slippers were not ruby; they were silver.
Well, I noticed that when there's a movie version of a book, whether it's Space Odyssey 2001 or The Shining, the things that the director changes to fit the predictive programming are some of the biggest clues. Like
Mm-hmm.
why did Stanley Kubrick choose Room 237? It wasn't in the novel. Well, it's
Well,
because
The Jay Weidner documentary, right?
yep. And that Jay Weidner documentary does not tell the whole picture. He focuses on Apollo 11. He seems to have totally missed the 2001 September 11th predictive programming. He seems to have totally missed the COVID predictive programming because he couldn't have known. But yeah, Kubrick's films are predictive programming for the 20th and 21st century.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna like this one. Back to Oz. Ready? In the film, who actually revealed the wizard behind the curtain was Toto, the dog. Remember?
Yes.
Heck, yeah, let's explore Toto a bit further now. Toto, the dog that they used in the film, was a Cairn Terrier and a black dog. You know the occult significance of black dog, right? And the cult of Anubis.
What is the significance of the?
Black dog?
Yeah.
Well, Anubis is a black jackal.
Interesting.
It's a death cult.
Okay, well here's something here on Toto. Just grab this here. It's a
Cairn Terrier.
it's a backronym for OTOT, Totable Tornado Observatory. Oh no, other way around. The Totable Tornado Observatory was adapted from the dog. So it's named after the dog.
And let's not forget the OTO in Toto.
Well, when were they founded? I'll have to check. Maybe it was timely.
Don't know the year.
But anyway, this thing with someone had asked. I had to bring this up. Someone had said or asked if they could find evidence that the guy who was dressed up like Vincent Fuchsia, or rather as JFK Jr., the Vincent Fuchsia guy that they believe is JFK Jr., he was wearing a George magazine shirt behind Trump when the shooting happened, and I have that specific magazine cover he was wearing, and it does say "Dodging Bullets." It's the third article down on the left. So I'll put a link. Again, just look up George Magazine, and if you can find the image where George Magazine has JFK Jr. on the right, it does say "Dodging Bullets." So that was right behind Trump. In fact, Trump was pointing, and his hand was pointing at this guy's shirt when the shooting happened, from one of the views.
Well, let's look at another thing with Trump. Now, of course, most people by now are very well aware of his Scottish heritage. The Cairn Terrier, Toto being a Cairn Terrier. A cairn is a funerary pile of rocks. It's a rock structure, a cairn. It's a mound of rocks. And a terrier is literally a earth dog. And the terriers are renowned for hunting in tunnels.
Didn't know that.
Terrier.
Didn't know
of
that.
all black dogs, right? Of all black dogs, they cast a Cairn Terrier. That's the mega wizard connection between Trump and Oz. And Dorothy's silver slippers are a lot more aligned with the whole yellow brick road, bullion silver monetary theme.
Yeah, I may have to reread that or read that book and then reread some of the breakdowns of it. I know it has these various uses in different analogies, but my focus on it, I think, was because of Fritz Sprigmeyer and his book on how to create a totally undetectable Illuminati mind-controlled slave, and he claimed that The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland are two books that that figure prominently in MK Ultra programming. And what's weird about this is both these books contain a character like Persephone who goes into an underworld where you have this ruler, the Wizard of Oz or the Mad Hatter, you got Alice, and you have Dorothy. And both of these figure in a lot of movies. I can point to a lot of movies that have this very template. And interestingly, in Scientology, if you were to go in and take some intro classes, one of their courses on communication has you picking up a copy of Alice in Wonderland and repeating like a mantra several passages again and again in various tones of voice for hours. Like, there's some really crazy training in Scientology that involves Alice in Wonderland. So when I read about how these books are used in mind control, I was like, there may be something to it, because when I went to Scientology, I was repeating stuff out of an Alice in Wonderland book for hours, and it was the strangest thing.
Let us not forget the significance in both tales, because they're almost perfect mirrors, Dorsey and Alice. Let's not forget the significance of anthropomorphized animals in both.
Which are the anthropomorphized animals in the Wizard of Oz? Because you've got the, got the rabbit.
Well, we got the cowardly lion.
Okay, I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
And another thing, ready? In the battle in the film, I'm not sure about the book. I don't remember. In the film, during Dorothy and Scarecrow's stroll through the woods, when they have a battle with the trees, they get attacked by their apples. Attacked by apples. Apples as weapons. When you think of apple and weapon.
Well, hey, I've got 6 minutes here before I have to run and go to the Uber.
Yeah, it was great talking to you again.
But yeah, okay, appreciate it. Yeah, I have to head out of here in just a few minutes, so I want to make sure we get everything else. So yeah, the George News cover does say dodging bullets. You can find that. H.P. Lovecraft died in 1937. John Warnock Hinckley Jr., who was inspired by Robert De Niro to shoot Ronald Reagan, has come out to say, in light of the Trump assassination attempt, that we should not do violence.
John Hinckley joins me now. And John, it's fascinating to speak to you tonight. After Thomas Matthew Crooks shot Trump, you spoke out, you posted on social media, you said, violence is not the way to go. Give peace a chance. Why do you feel the need to speak out?
Well, Aaron, I feel the need to speak out because this country is just in a really bad place right now. There's so much violence, so many guns.
Now, he said,
just really
okay, this is John Hinckley again. He was inspired by Robert De Niro's performance in Taxi Driver as Travis Bickle, and to impress Jodie Foster, he shoots Reagan, and now he's out. He also shot Brady, who died 33 years later, and they ruled it a homicide, and he died on August 4th. So the death date there, 8/4, highly significant. Oh, James Brady. James Brady's death ruled a homicide 33 years ago. He was shot on 3/30, and on 8/4 he died. So he was shot by this guy, John Hinckley. Now, Hinckley, again, is saying give peace a chance, and give peace a chance is a John Lennon thing, which is also intriguing because John Lennon was shot by Mark Chapman, who had J.D. Salinger's book in his pocket. And so there's some connections here between these assassins and their inspirations. Taxi Driver, Catcher in the Rye. Both of them contain what we would consider to be predictive programming value and symbolism, etc. But it's odd that they would bring him out at this time. Again, because of the Trump assassination attempt. He says violence is not the way to go. Give peace a chance.
Fraught time right now in America. And I wanted to speak out as someone who knows a little bit about what happened because of what happened with me in 1981.
Anyway, these are actors. There are no real patsies. Okay, here's a clip. Lex Friedman talking about his ayahuasca trip with Elon Musk.
I just recently taken ayahuasca.
Is that a
So this question? No. Well, yes.
Well, I guess technically it is.
Yeah. Have
Yeah,
you
'cause there's
tried? Ever
DMT
tried
in there or
DMT,
something
bro?
in there?
I love you, Joe.
That's
Okay.
Now, I can't listen to these two guffawing and yucking it up and all this. I'm like, okay, I get it. It's funny, but I want to find the exact clip. Maybe I have it here where he went to space and saw the globe and the sun and the galaxies, which is laughable if that stuff is all fake. If it's all fake, then all these people who make these claims have very vivid imaginations enhanced by drugs, but steered by science fiction. So they're basically, I guess, primed to interpret it in a certain way. Here's a reference. Kubrick used Jupiter instead of Arthur C. Clarke's trip to Saturn because the special effects supervisor Douglas Trumbull could not decide on what they considered to be a convincing model for Saturn's rings. Saturn would have made a lot more sense, and it makes a lot more sense because it would connect solidly with the Saturnian black cube, the black monolith, and all this other all these other symbols that are part of this collection. Says, here's something else. This is just something I had mentioned. The Scientology sessions in the third TR training routine is called Dear Alice, where one Scientologist repeats lines from Alice in Wonderland, while the other person acknowledges them. Yeah, Scientology training routines are interesting. One of them is called bull baiting. And in bull baiting, the person in front of you verbally abuses you. And they make fun of you. And they call you names and they say things that, have probably never been said to your face. It says bull bait is part of the training routines to train the auditor to be able to hear or see anything without reactions. And I thought this was a valuable skill, where I'm sitting in a chair, not moving, and the person in front of me is just saying the most insulting things. And I was actually surprised at this person's lexicon. It was like the son of the main pastor or preacher or whatever, and he'd grown up in the church. So I'm like sitting there in this chair, and he's saying these things that are making me laugh, but they're meant to be infuriating. And eventually, though, the whole point of it is you learn how to not react no matter what somebody says to your face, which is kind of like what drill sergeants do in basic training. They teach you to disassociate. Bull baiting, sit with your eyes open for hours, not moving, no laughing, no twitching, while confronting the coach, while he or she tries in every way to make you react. Again, that was the second PR. I've always been interested in these various topics, but I used to, and I kind of still do a lot of on-the-ground research. And I just thought, it's not enough to read about something on the internet. You have to really join it to know what it's about. Okay, just a couple more minutes here. Lean Dion says, LOL, so cringe. Yeah, Scientology, it's all cringe. Tom103 says, Lex Elon interview opens up with a mention of Clockwork Orange and Kubrick. Okay, I have some comments. David Hazel said, planet-killing asteroids are a joke, but I wouldn't put it past the powers that be to bomb every major city with their fake nukes and say it was asteroids. I'd say that's fakeable. April Peters 8620 says the predictive programming pre-repeats itself over and over. Yes, it's definitely cyclic. IFFA 73 says Trump's the better actor. He's had multiple starring roles. Jussie Smollett is just a bit player. We had a poll: who's the better actor? Who's the better crisis actor, I should say, between Smollett and Trump. Now here's an interesting comment from Tony Driscoll. Before Manson was even known as a music artist, I saw him on an MTV show called Hanging with MTV. He was in the audience, and he was interviewed by the host about his crush that he had on the MTV VJ, whose name is Kennedy. He had a huge binder, and it was full of things he wrote about this woman named Kennedy, like some obsessed fanboy. A year later, he came out as Marilyn Manson and released the first album. The links with Kennedy go very far back to the very beginning, really. And this is a reference to the Coma White, where he plays JFK getting killed, and the video was postponed because JFK Jr.'s death happened to be right around the same time. And the QAnon story is kind of built into it. So we're looking at that. Kennedy-Manson connections. Marilyn Monroe has some connections to Kennedy as well, and that's part of his name. Not to mention her death date, weirdly, is August 4th. So today's the death anniversary of James Brady, Marilyn Monroe. And it's the birthday of Barack Obama and Hakeem Jeffries. And this was the expected day of the real head wound on Antichrist Donald Trump. But as of right now, Nicotramus is not going to be divorcing his wife and moving to Glendale to join the cult of JL. So you can go ahead and put that on hold for now. Another year. Jay Diggs says Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland were two of the earliest films, and each were remade multiple times before the versions that got popular. Yeah, they both have some curious connections to mind control. And the book that I referenced was called, and it's by Fritz Sprigmeyer, And I don't know how much of this, well, actually, a lot of it's probably just disinformation and fake, who knows. But he put out this PDF which described what he calls, quote, the Illuminati formula to create a totally undetectable, mind-controlled slave. But I might have to read this again, because the last time I read this, it was my pre-auto-hoaxing days. And now that I think about it, it might be totally valid. If we talk about mind control in the sense that we do here, like we are MK Ultra. This is an MK Ultra society. But in this book, he describes hypnosis, fascinating subjects here. The skill of lying, the art of deceit, manipulation and programming, split brain work, mind manipulation by psychological programming methods, satanic families conditioning their children, neurolinguistic programming, inverting pain, pleasure, guilt, shame, ridicule, anger. Now that's an interesting one. Guilt, shame. Guilt and shame are a huge part of environmentalism. Environmentalism is pretty much self-hate. It's misanthropy and hating other people for breathing. Feeling guilty for your purchases. The art of blackmail, peer pressure, monitoring asset control. This looks really intriguing. This book is dedicated to the 2 million Americans and counting who have been programmed by monarch-type trauma-based mind control. This book is written to destroy trauma-based mind control before it destroys the human race. Sorry, you're too late. They've already been there and done that. But I'm going to reread this because of our conversation tonight with the last caller about the significance of Alice in Wonderland and the Wizard of Oz in MK Ultra mind control sessions. Who knows? Maybe I'm MK Ultra. Maybe the Scientologists got to me, and this is some kind of alter personality that was programmed. Anyway, this has been great. We will continue this conversation here tomorrow. And look, it's 11:11 p.m. 8/4/2024. We don't know what happened. For example, Marilyn Monroe dies on the 4th, but they find her on the 5th. So we don't know what's going to happen between now and tomorrow morning. We don't know what Illuminati playing cards, if any, are going to be played. So don't eat that nothing burger yet. There may still be something on the grill. We'll see you all tomorrow. This is Auto Hoaxology by Symbia.
I don't believe in chemtrails, I don't live in Trutherville. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, auto hoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I've moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind day. I stepped away from the game entirely, I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I've stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading out of hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading out of hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, out of hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin', reading out of hoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receivers. Standing on the sword of truth, I stab the backs of deceivers, demanding burdens for the proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely, I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading auto hoaxology, out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, cause I've been reading auto hoaxology. Nothing can bother me, auto hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin', reading auto hoaxology, suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reality. action. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing. Crying over the fake bodies like a bitter death clinger.